The distress signal had been broadcasting for 3 days now. Elder Biol stood in the communication center of Harem 3, watching the same message play over and over on the screens. His long fingers trembled as he adjusted the transmission frequency one more time, hoping anyone would answer. "Still nothing?" asked his assistant, her voice barely a whisper. Biol shook his head. The Nalith were a peaceful people. They had no weapons, no armies, no reason for anyone to hate them. They grew food on their green world and traded with neighboring systems. They bothered no one. But now the Varrock had come, and the Nalith had no way to defend themselves. Above the planet, massive Varrock warships blocked out the stars. 12 battlecruisers hung in orbit like dark moons, their weapon systems pointed down at the cities below. The Varrock wanted Harem 3 for its position near their empire's border. They did not care that people lived here. They did not care about the farms or the families or the 1,000 years of Nalith history on this world. Commander Vorath sat in his command chair aboard the flagship, reviewing the invasion plans. The Nalith would surrender or they would die. It was that simple. He had done this before on other worlds. Small species always folded when faced with superior force. In 2 days, maybe 3, Harem 3 would belong to the Varrock Empire. Any response to their distress calls? Vorath asked his communications officer. None, Commander. The Galactic Council has received their messages but taken no action. No other species has responded either. Vorath smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Of course no one would come. The Nalith had nothing to offer. No precious metals, no advanced technology, no strategic value beyond their location. The galaxy operated on trade and power. The Nalith had neither. What Vorath did not know was that someone had been listening. Not the Galactic Council with their debates and committees. Not the neighboring systems with their carefully neutral stance. Someone else had heard the call and they had already arrived. Corporal Daehyun floated in the darkness between stars, his suit's systems running in complete silence. He had been here for 72 hours, watching, recording, analyzing. His ship was small, no bigger than a personal shuttle, and its stealth systems made it invisible to every scanner the Varrock possessed. He was not alone. 3 other reconnaissance operators hung in the black around Harem 3, each one cataloging the enemy fleet. Patrol Route Delta confirmed. Daehyun whispered into his secure channel. They cycle every 4 hours like clockwork. Copy that, replied Sergeant Tae Yang from another position. These Varrock are predictable. They think no one is watching. Private Yunji's voice crackled softly over the comm. I'm intercepting their command channel. They plan to start the ground assault in 48 hours, targeting civilian centers first to break resistance. Daehyun felt a familiar cold anger settle in his chest. He had seen this before on other worlds, other times. Strong species crushing weak ones because they could, because no one would stop them. Earth had a different view on such matters. Earth remembered being the weak ones once, remembered crying out for help that never came. Humanity had learned hard lessons about power and responsibility. Stay dark, Tae Yang ordered. Command will make the call. We just gather intel. Daehyun adjusted his position slightly using tiny thrusters that produced no detectable signature. His suit was black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Human military technology had evolved not to overpower enemies but to outthink them. Stealth over strength, precision over power. The Shadow Corps existed because sometimes the best way to fight was to never be seen until you chose to be. On Harem 3, Elder Biol finally turned off the communication console. 3 days of broadcasting and not a single reply. He walked slowly through the halls of the government building, passing windows that showed the Varrock ships above. His people gathered in the streets below, looking up at the sky with fear in their eyes. What do we do? Asked Captain Myung, the leader of their small security force. He had 40 officers trained to handle disputes and accidents, not war. We have some old weapons in storage, but nothing that could threaten those ships. Biol placed a gentle hand on the younger Nalith's shoulder. We protect our people as best we can. We evacuate the cities, hide the children in the deep shelters. Maybe the Varrock will show mercy. Both of them knew it was a lie. The Varrock did not show mercy. The galaxy did not reward the peaceful. This was simply how things were. High above them, Daehyun finished his latest scan of the Varrock fleet. He had mapped every ship, identified every weapon system, noted every weakness in their formation. His data linked seamlessly with the intelligence gathered by his team. Together, they had built a complete picture of the enemy's capabilities and patterns. Movement on the flagship, Yunji reported. Command staff meeting. Looks like they're finalizing the attack schedule. Daehyun zoomed his optical sensors in on the massive warship. Through the viewports, he could see Verak officers gathered around a holographic display. They looked confident, relaxed even. Why wouldn't they be? They had overwhelming force and no opposition. The Nalith were defenseless and alone. But that was the thing about darkness, Daehyun thought. You never knew what was hiding in it until too late. The Verak believed they were the apex predators here, the strongest force in the system. They had no idea that something was watching them from the shadows, something that had evolved in the dark between stars, something that had learned to hunt much larger prey through patience and precision. All units. This is Tai Yang, the sergeant's voice came through clearly. I just received confirmation from command. Mission is approved. We are go for operation. Daehyun felt his heartbeat steady into the familiar rhythm of combat preparation. 3 days of watching was over. Now came the part where humanity showed the Verak why it was dangerous to prey on the helpless when Earth was watching. Rules of engagement? Yunji asked. Standard Shadow Corp protocol, Taeyang replied. We don't exist until we choose to. Make them question everything they know. Make them afraid of the dark. And when they're broken and scattered, then we show them what came for them. Daehyun checked his equipment one final time. He carried no identification, nothing that would mark him as human. If he died out here, the Verak would find only a body in an unmarked suit with technology they could not trace. That was how the Shadow Corps operated. Ghosts in the machine, phantoms in the black. Below, Elder Biol stood on the steps of his government building, preparing to address his people one last time before the invasion began. He would tell them to be brave, to hope, to survive. He would not tell them that no help was coming because he did not want to steal what little hope remained. But help was coming. It had been here all along, watching and waiting in the darkness. The Nalith had thought no one would answer their call. They were wrong. Earth had heard, and Earth had sent its shadows first, the way humanity always did, silent, invisible, and absolutely lethal when the time came. The Verak would learn soon enough. The hard way. The invasion began at dawn. Verak dropships descended through the atmosphere like falling meteors, their hulls glowing red from friction. Commander Vorath watched from his command deck, satisfied with the precision of his forces. 12 landing zones perfectly coordinated. The Nalith would be overwhelmed within hours. On the ground, Captain Myung watched the ships fall from the sky. He had positioned his 40 security officers at the main city's perimeter, knowing it was pointless but unable to simply give up. Behind him, thousands of Nalith civilians huddled in shelters, praying for a miracle that would not come. The first Verak troops hit the ground with heavy thuds. They were large creatures nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick armor. Their weapons were massive energy rifles that could punch through concrete. They moved in perfect formation, advancing on the city from multiple directions. Myung raised his small pistol, hands shaking. His officers looked to him for orders. He opened his mouth to speak, to say something brave and final when every Verak weapon suddenly went silent. The advancing soldiers stopped, confused, staring at their rifles. Officers shouted orders, trying to understand what had happened. Then their communication systems died. The dropships that had just landed found their engines cutting out. Automated turrets that had been sweeping for targets suddenly swiveled and began firing on Verak positions. Chaos erupted across all 12 landing zones simultaneously, high in orbit. Lieutenant Jinwoo worked quickly in the maintenance corridor of the Verak command station. He had entered through an auxiliary airlock that the Verak engineers had deemed too small to be a security risk. They had not considered that humans were smaller than most species, or that human combat engineers were trained to exploit every oversight. Access granted, Jinwoo whispered into his comm. Hana, you're connected. Copy that, Specialist Hana replied from her own infiltration point. Her fingers flew across a portable interface as she jacked into the station's main network. The Verak had good security by galactic standards, which meant it was adequate against known threats. But Hana had trained in cyber warfare techniques developed over centuries of human conflict, refined against Earth's best hackers and military programmers. She tore through their firewalls like they were made of paper. I'm in their tactical net, Hana reported, redirecting targeting solutions now. Their automated systems think their own troops are hostiles. Jinwoo planted his first charge on a power junction. Small, elegant, impossible to detect until too late. He had 20 more to place throughout the station's critical systems. When the time came, the entire command structure would collapse. But not yet. First, let them panic. Let them scramble. Let them question everything. On Harem 3, Private Yoonji moved through the shadows behind Varrock lines. She had inserted during the initial chaos, her stealth suit rendering her nearly invisible. Now she crouched on a rooftop overlooking Captain Myung's position. The Nalith officer stood frozen, watching Varrock soldiers shoot at each other in confusion. Captain Myung, Yoonji's voice came through his personal communicator, startling him. Check your tactical display. New data uploading now. Who is this? Myung demanded, looking around wildly. Where are you? Doesn't matter. Look at your screen. Myung stared at his handheld device as information flooded in. Enemy positions. Patrol routes. Weak points in their formation. Command structures. It was everything. More intelligence than the Nalith had gathered in 3 days of surveillance. How did you get this? Myung whispered. Your people aren't alone anymore, Yoonji replied. Rally your forces to coordinates I'm sending. There's a weapons depot 3 blocks east. The Varrock left it unguarded because their tactical net said it was secured. It's not. Arm your people and wait for my signal. But who are you? The comm clicked off. Yoonji was already moving to her next position. Commander Vorath stood in his command center, watching reports pour in from the surface. Nothing made sense. Weapons failing. Communications down. Automated systems attacking his own troops. His officers shouted conflicting information, trying to understand what was happening. Run full diagnostics on all systems. Vorath roared. Find the malfunction. Sir, there is no malfunction, his technical officer reported, voice shaking. The systems are working perfectly. They're just working against us. That's impossible. How can an explosion rock the command station? Lights flickered. Vorath grabbed his chair for support. What was that? Power junction failure on deck 12, sir. Another explosion. Then another. Throughout the station, Jinwoo's charges detonated in perfect sequence, crippling non-essential systems while leaving life support intact. The Shadow Corps did not wage war against civilians or stations full of non-combatants. They were surgical, precise. Every action calculated to achieve maximum effect with minimum casualties. Sergeant Tae Yang watched from his position in the asteroid field nearby. He had a perfect view of the Varrock fleet and the growing chaos. His job was coordination, making sure every human operator's actions synchronized into one overwhelming psychological assault. Status report, Tae Yang requested calmly. Ground forces are scattered and confused, Yoonji reported. Nalith resistance is arming up and taking positions. Command station crippled, Jinwoo added. They can still communicate, but their tactical coordination is gone. Fleet command network is compromised, Hana confirmed. I've got access to their sensor data. Feeding them ghost signals now. Tae Yang smiled. Ghost signals were an old Earth trick. False sensor readings that made ships appear where nothing existed. The Varrock would see threats everywhere and nowhere, making them paranoid and trigger-happy. On the surface, Captain Myung led his newly armed security force through the streets. The weapons they found were Varrock military grade, far superior to anything the Nalith had possessed. More importantly, they now had intelligence. They knew where the enemy was, where they were going, and where they were weakest. A Varrock patrol rounded the corner ahead. Myung raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the aliens' communication devices began screaming with feedback. The soldiers clutched their helmets, disoriented. Myung's force fired, and the patrol went down without returning a shot. How did you do that? One of Myung's officers asked. I didn't, Myung replied, remembering the mysterious voice that had helped them. Someone was out there. Someone with capabilities beyond anything the Nalith understood. Someone who struck from the shadows and turned the enemy's strength into weakness. Commander Vorath watched his perfect invasion crumble into nightmare. Reports came in of patrols disappearing, of weapons malfunctions, of sensor ghosts that vanished when investigated. His soldiers reported seeing shadows that moved wrong, hearing sounds that shouldn't exist. Morale was collapsing. Sir, we should withdraw and regroup, his second officer suggested. Something is interfering with our operation. What? What is interfering? Show me the enemy! But the officer could not. The sensors showed nothing. No ships, no armies, no evidence of any opposing force. Just chaos and fear spreading through the Varrock ranks like disease. It's the Nalith. Vorath insisted. They must have hidden defenses, weapons we didn't know about. But even as he said it, he did not believe it. The Nalith were too peaceful, too weak. This was something else. Something that fought in ways the Varrock had never encountered. Deep in space, Corporal Daehyun completed his latest sabotage run. He had drifted close to a Varrock destroyer and attached micromines to its sensor array. They would not destroy the ship, but they would blind it at a critical moment. He had similar surprises prepared for 6 other vessels. All units, this is Taeyang. The sergeant's voice came through. Phase 1 complete. The enemy is disoriented and scattered. Hyunji, begin Phase 2. Make contact with the Nalith leadership. Let them know they have allies. Understood, Hyunji replied. She found Elder Biol in the government building's command center. The old Nalith stood before a window, watching his world defend itself in ways he did not understand. Hyunji deactivated her stealth field, appearing beside him like a ghost becoming solid. Biol gasped and stumbled backward. Hyunji raised her hands peacefully. My name is Hyunji, she said simply. I'm from Earth. We heard your call for help. Earth? Biol whispered. But Earth is so far away. How did you get here so fast? We were already close by. We watched the dark places, Elder. The places where stronger species prey on weaker ones. We watch, and when necessary, we act. But I see no Earth ships in orbit. No armies, Hyunji smiled behind her helmet. We don't come with armies, Elder. We come with shadows. And shadows are enough. Warlord Kresh had reached his limit. 7 days of failure, 3 executed officers, and the Nalith resistance growing stronger every hour. His pride would not allow this humiliation to continue. If he could not conquer Harem 3, he would destroy it. Prepare orbital bombardment, Kresh ordered from his command throne. Target every major city and settlement. We will burn this world to ash and rebuild it properly. Commander Vorath, standing nearby, felt his blood run cold. Sir, the Galactic Council will condemn such action. The political consequences. I do not care about politics. Kresh roared. I care about victory. If we cannot have this world intact, no one will have it at all. Enter the firing codes. The weapons officer hesitated only a moment before complying. Throughout the Varrock fleet, massive plasma cannons charged with enough power to crack continents. In 30 minutes, every city on Harem 3 would be molten slag. Major Sang-hee received the alert from Hana, who was still monitoring Varrock communications. They've entered launch codes for planetary bombardment. 30 minutes until firing sequence completes. For the first time in the operation, Sang-hee felt genuine urgency. The mission had been to help the Nalith defend themselves, to teach the Varrock a lesson about preying on peaceful species. But if those plasma cannons fired, millions would die. The Shadow Corps had done its job in the shadows. Now it was time to step into the light. All units, this is Sang-hee. Authorization code Phantom 77. We are weapons free. Taeyang, get the Nalith to shelters. Everyone else, prepare for full combat operations. It's time to show them what came for them. About time. Captain Bora replied from the cockpit of the stealth frigate Silent Knife. She had been holding position in the asteroid field for 7 days, watching her fellow operators work from the shadows. Now she could finally do what she did best. Strike Team Alpha is moving into position. The Silent Knife was small compared to the Varrock battleships. Only 70 meters long, crew of 12, built more for stealth than sustained combat. But it was fast. Faster than anything the Varrock had, and it was armed with railguns that could punch through shields and armor with kinetic force alone. Bora's hands flew over the controls as she brought the ship out of stealth. 3 sister ships decloaking on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. 4 human vessels appeared on Varrock sensors simultaneously. They materialized like ghosts, becoming solid, surrounding the Varrock fleet in a perfect diamond formation. Alarms screamed across every Varrock bridge. Unknown vessels. A Varrock sensor officer shouted. 4 contacts, classification unknown. Warlord Kresh stared at the display in disbelief. Where did they come from? Why did we not detect them before? They were using some kind of stealth system, sir. Our sensors could not penetrate it. Identify them. Are they Galactic Council ships? But before anyone could answer, Bora opened fire. The Silent Knife's railgun spat a solid tungsten slug at a significant fraction of light speed. It crossed the distance in less than a second and struck Kresh's flagship directly on the shield generator. The shields collapsed with a flash of blue energy. Evasive maneuvers, Kresh screamed. But the massive battleship was not built for evasive maneuvers. It was built to dominate through overwhelming firepower and heavy armor. The human frigates were built to dance. Bora's ship spun through a combat roll that would have killed most species from the G-forces alone. Human pilots trained in ships that pulled acceleration most aliens could not survive handled it easily. The silent knife fired again, this time targeting the weapon systems on the port side. Another railgun strike, another system destroyed. The other 3 human ships engaged the Varric escorts, moving so fast the heavy cruisers could not track them properly. "Return fire," Kresh ordered. "All ships, concentrate fire on those vessels." The Varric fleet opened up with every weapon they had. Plasma bolts and missile swarms filled the space between ships. But the human frigates were already somewhere else by the time the weapons reached where they had been. Bora laughed as she threaded the silent knife through an impossible gap between 2 plasma bolts. "They shoot like they're aiming at targets that don't move," she said over the comm. "No wonder they lose fights." On the ground, Sergeant Tai Yang was evacuating the last civilians when he received new orders. "Tai Yang, this is Sang He. The fleet is engaged. We need you to take out the ground-based targeting relays. If those go offline, they can't coordinate their bombardment." "Understood. Myung, gather your best fighters. We're going after the relay stations." Captain Myung had his team ready in minutes. Over the past week, the Nalith had learned to trust the human operators completely. If Sergeant Tai Yang said they needed to attack 4 heavily defended positions simultaneously, then that was what they would do. The raids were swift and brutal. Tai Yang had taught the Nalith every trick humanity had learned from centuries of asymmetric warfare. They hit the relay stations with shaped charges that Yunji had positioned days earlier, waiting for this moment. The explosions were precisely timed. All 4 stations went dark within seconds of each other. In orbit, Warlord Kresh watched his bombardment solution fall apart. "Why are we losing target locks?" "The ground relays are down, sir." "We can't coordinate the bombardment without them." Kresh's rage reached new heights. This invisible enemy had been undermining him from the start. Now they revealed themselves, and they were human. Earth, that small world on the edge of known space that everyone whispered about with fear and uncertainty. The species that fought wars unlike anyone else. The species that won against superior numbers through tactics the galaxy considered dishonorable. "I want those human ships destroyed," Kresh roared. "All power to weapons. Ram them if you must." But ramming a ship that could outmaneuver you was impossible. Bora's silent knife made another pass, this time targeting the flagship's main gun. The railgun strike was surgical, destroying the plasma cannon without breaching the hull. Human weapons were designed for precision. Varric weapons were designed to obliterate. In this kind of fight, precision won. Lieutenant Jinwoo, still hidden inside the Varric command station, chose this moment for his final surprise. He activated all the charges he had spent 7 days planting throughout the facility. The explosions cascaded through critical systems. Life support stayed intact, but power distribution, communications, and tactical coordination all failed at once. The command station went dark. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in red. Officers shouted in confusion, trying to understand what had happened. Jinwoo smiled behind his helmet and began his extraction, moving through the chaos like smoke through air. Major Sang Hee watched the battle from her command post on the moon. The Varric fleet was in disarray. Their flagship was crippled. Their command station was offline. Their ground forces had lost their bombardment solution. And 4 small human ships were systematically dismantling their fleet piece by piece. "All units." "Status report," Sang Hee requested calmly. "Silent knife taking light damage. Still combat effective," Bora reported. "We've neutralized 6 capital ships and 12 escorts. The rest are breaking formation." "Ground targeting relays destroyed," Taeyang confirmed. "Nalith forces are securing the sites. 0 friendly casualties." "I'm clear of the command station," Jinwoo added. "Extraction shuttle inbound. Cyber warfare operations complete," Hana reported. "I've locked out their command and control networks. Even if they get power back, they won't be able to coordinate." Sang Hee nodded, though no one could see her. "Final phase. Let's end this." She opened a channel that broadcast to every Varric vessel in the system. "Warlord Kresh, this is Major Sang Hee of Earth Shadow Corps. You have 3 minutes to order a full retreat from this system. If you do not comply, we will destroy every ship in your fleet. This is your only warning." Kresh, sitting in his darkened command center, could barely breathe from rage. You dare threaten me with 4 tiny ships? I have 15 capital vessels. You had 15 capital vessels, Sang-He corrected. Now you have 8 operational ships, limited ammunition, no tactical coordination, and no idea how many more human vessels are watching you right now. We've been here for 7 days, Warlord, watching, waiting, learning every weakness in your forces. We know your patrol routes, your communication protocols, your tactical doctrines. We know which of your officers are competent and which are cowards. We could have destroyed your fleet on the first day if we wanted to. We didn't because we wanted you to learn something. Learn what? That the galaxy has shadows in it. And in those shadows, humanity watches for species that prey on the peaceful. You chose to invade a world that could not defend itself. You chose wrong. Now retreat, or we will dismantle your fleet ship by ship until nothing remains but wreckage and survivors telling stories about the day Earth said no. For a long moment, Kresh said nothing. His pride warred with his survival instinct. Finally, survival won. All ships, he said quietly, begin retreat procedures. We are leaving this cursed system. Elder Buell stood on the steps of his government building, watching the Verak ships break orbit and flee into the darkness. Around him, the Nalith people emerged from shelters, seeing the sky clear of enemy vessels for the first time in 8 days. Captain Mayong approached, looking up at the stars. Are they really gone? The Galactic Council chamber was filled with representatives from 47 species, and today they were all focused on one thing, the incident at Harem 3. Ambassador Minseo sat calmly in Earth's designated seat, watching the other delegates argue among themselves. She had expected this meeting. Earth always expected the consequences of its actions. Counselor Vrex, a tall reptilian species with scales that shimmered purple, called for order. We are here to address the unauthorized military intervention by Earth in the Harem 3 system. The Verak Empire has filed formal complaints claiming illegal interference in their sovereign operations. The Verak ambassador, a smaller version of Warlord Kresh, stood and gestured dramatically. Earth deployed military forces without council authorization. They attacked our ships, sabotaged our equipment, and forced our retreat through terrorism and sabotage. This is a violation of galactic law. Minseo waited patiently. She knew how this worked. The Verak would make accusations. Other species would express concern about Earth's mysterious military capabilities. Everyone would dance around the real issue while pretending to care about laws and procedures. Ambassador Minseo, Counselor Vrex said, turning to her. How does Earth respond to these accusations? Minseo stood, smoothing her formal jacket. She had been a diplomat for 20 years, long enough to know that sometimes the truth was the best weapon. The accusations are correct. Earth did deploy military forces to Harem 3. We did interfere with Verak operations, and we make no apologies for doing so. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. The Verak ambassador looked almost pleased, as if Minseo had just confessed to a crime. You admit it. You admit to illegal military action. Illegal? Minseo raised an eyebrow. Let's review the timeline. 7 days before Earth arrived, the Nalith broadcast a distress signal, a cry for help from a peaceful species facing invasion. That signal reached every council member world. I have the transmission logs here. She gestured, and data appeared on the main display. The Nalith specifically requested aid under Council Resolution 847, which protects non-aligned peaceful species from unprovoked aggression. Counselor Vrex shifted uncomfortably. The council was still debating the appropriate response. For 7 days, Minseo interrupted. While the council debated, the Verak invaded. While you discussed protocols and procedures, civilians died. While you worried about political complications, a world burned. Earth does not have the luxury of endless debate when people need help. But the council has procedures. Another delegate protested. Rules must be followed. Rules? Minseo's voice grew colder. Show me the rule that says peaceful species must wait for bureaucracy while invaders kill them. Show me the procedure that explains why the strongest military powers in the galaxy stood by and did nothing. Earth followed the only rule that matters. When someone calls for help, you answer. The Verak ambassador slammed his hand on the podium. You cannot justify terrorism. Your forces operated in secret, used sabotage and psychological warfare, caused chaos and fear among our troops. These are not the actions of an honorable military. Minseo turned to face him directly. You're right. They're not. Honor is for species that can afford it. Honor is a luxury of the strong. Earth learned a long time ago that when you're outgunned and outnumbered, honor gets you killed. We fight to win, using every advantage we have. We don't apologize for being good at it. This is exactly why Earth is dangerous, another counselor said nervously. You operate outside our norms, your military capabilities are unknown, and you refuse to follow established protocols. Dangerous to whom? Mincio asked quietly. The Nalith don't think we're dangerous. We saved them. The Varric think we're dangerous because we stopped them from committing atrocities. Perhaps the real question is not whether Earth is dangerous, but who we are dangerous to. She pulled up another display. Let me show you something. These are the sensor logs from the Harem 3 system for the 7 days before Earth revealed itself. Look carefully. What do you see? The delegates studied the data. One by one, their expressions changed from curiosity to unease. Nothing. Counselor Vrek said slowly. The sensors show nothing unusual. Exactly, Mincio confirmed. Earth had 13 military operatives in that system for 7 days. 13 humans. They infiltrated Varric ships, sabotaged equipment, trained resistance fighters, and coordinated a defense that defeated a fleet of 15 capital ships. And your sensors detected nothing. No ships, no signatures, no evidence, until we chose to reveal ourselves. The implications settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. If Earth could operate completely undetected for that long, in a system with active military scanning, then they could be anywhere. They could be everywhere. The Council suddenly realized they had no idea how often this happened or where else Earth was watching. How many other operations has Earth conducted? Vrex asked, and his voice was not accusatory anymore. It was worried. I'm not authorized to share that information, Mincio replied, but I can tell you that Earth takes its responsibilities seriously. We watch the dark places, the systems where predators hunt prey, the worlds that have no voice in this council, and when necessary we act. Without asking permission, the Varric ambassador said bitterly. Would you have given permission? Mincio shot back. Would the council have authorized aid for the Nalith? Or would you have debated for weeks while they died? Earth doesn't ask permission because we know the answer would be no. We don't seek approval because we don't need it. We act based on what's right, not what's convenient. Elder Biol, who had been invited to testify, stood from his observer seat. May I speak? Counselor Vrex nodded. The floor recognizes Elder Biol of the Nalith people. The old Nalith walked to the center of the chamber, his movements slow but dignified. I came here to tell you about Earth, about what they did for my world. We are a small species, a peaceful one. We have nothing to offer the great powers of this galaxy. No resources worth fighting for. No strategic value. When the Varric came, we called for help and this council did nothing. We did not blame you. We understood. Why would anyone risk war for us? He paused, looking around the chamber. But Earth came, not with grand fleets and declarations, not seeking glory or reward. They came in silence, in shadow, and they saved us. Their soldiers taught us to fight. Their tacticians broke our enemies. Their ships defended our sky, and when it was over, they prepared to leave as quietly as they arrived. Before they left, I asked Major Sanghi why Earth helped us. She said something I will never forget. She said that humanity remembers being weak. They remember calling for help that never came. They remember learning that the galaxy respects only power. So now that they have power, they use it to protect those who have none, not for profit, not for territory. Because it is right, Biol's voice grew stronger. This council debates laws and procedures while species die. Earth acts. Yes, they are dangerous, but they are dangerous to the strong who prey on the weak. They are dangerous to empires that believe might makes right. They are dangerous to those who deserve to be afraid. For the rest of us, for the peaceful worlds and small species, Earth is the friend we needed but did not know existed. He sat down. The chamber was silent. Finally, Counselor Vrex spoke. Ambassador Mincio, the council must know. How many of your operatives are in council space right now? Mincio smiled slightly. Counselor, I think you're asking the wrong question. Then what's the right question? The question isn't how many are here. It's how many crises we've already prevented that you never even heard about. How many invasions we've stopped before they started. How many disasters we've averted in the shadows. Earth doesn't come with fanfare and declarations. We come in the dark when we're needed most, and we do what others won't. She gathered her materials, preparing to leave. The Varric learned something at Harem 3 that the council should remember. Humanity doesn't come for glory. We don't come for conquest. We come because someone needs help and no one else will answer. We are the shadow guardians of this galaxy, and we make no apologies for it." As Mincio walked out of the chamber, the delegates sat in stunned silence. Every one of them was thinking the same thing. Earth had been operating undetected throughout Council space, possibly for years. How many other interventions had there been? How many times had humanity stepped in while the Council debated? The Verak ambassador left quickly, humiliated and angry. His empire had been defeated by 13 humans, and now the entire galaxy knew it. Worse, they knew that Earth could strike anywhere, anytime, and no one would see them coming. On Harim 3, Sergeant Tae Yang stood with Captain Myung, watching the last human transport prepare for departure. The Nalith resistance had been trained, armed, and organized. Supply caches had been hidden across the planet. Defense satellites donated anonymously through corporate channels orbited above. The Nalith would not be helpless again. "Will we see you again?" Myung asked. "Probably not," Tai Yang replied honestly. "We go where we're needed. There are other worlds like yours, other species calling for help. The galaxy is large and full of predators." "Then I hope you find them all," Myung said. "And I hope you make them afraid the way you made the Verak afraid." Tai Yang smiled. "That's the plan.